Hello, PI listeners. This is Ola Dantis, and you are listening to the Passive Investor Show.
Are you a busy professional looking to diversify your portfolio? Ever wanted to passively invest in real estate but don't know where to start? John Fortes provides you with a guide to passively invest in real estate. This is the Passive Investor Show.
And now, the Passive Investor Show. Here's your host, John Fortes.
Hello, PI listeners. Thank you for lending me your time today. Welcome to the Passive Investor Show. I'm John Fortes. Our goal is to provide you, the busy professional, with passive investing tips and tricks for your real estate investments to leverage more time for you to focus on your true passions. Let's get to work. Today, my guest is Ola Dantis. Ola, the founder, CEO at Dwellin.com, a multifamily investment syndication firm, has successfully sourced deals over $40 million by working closely with sellers and other apartment syndicators across the country. Though Ola has only lived in the US for a few years, he has successfully completed rehab projects and is in excess of $1 million. Ola continues to exceed investors' returns, building upon his success on the real estate investment space. Ola likes to post his progress and encourages his community of 50,000 strong on Instagram. Recently, Ola, via Dwellin, closed on a $11.5 million deal, a 160-unit apartment building in Houston, Texas. Ola continues to meet or exceed investors' returns by investing in value-add deals in strong metropolitan cities across the United States. Ola enjoys working with new investors both here and abroad to help them become successful real estate investors. Finally, Ola's firm aims to give back with Dwellin's One House Pledge, which is an initiative to donate a house to a family for Christmas, starting in Baltimore. In addition to his recent trip to the Philippines and Bali, Ola visited slums and is now working on a local initiative to help people in need. That is awesome. That is their why. Hello, Ola. Thank you, and I'm grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I wish my wife was listening to that introduction. Sounds amazing. Thank you.
Hey, man, I appreciate you. Thank you. So, Ola, tell me about your background and how you got into investing.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so grateful to be here. Hopefully you can provide some value to your audience today. So like I said, my name is Ola Dantis. I've got a story I just love to tell about how I got started. Essentially, my wife and I moved here about 5 years ago, and we've been living, the American dream, essentially. My wife and I, we had jobs. We had a pretty nice apartment, nice one-bedroom luxury apartment. We didn't have to worry about where to park our car. We didn't have to worry about property tax. We didn't have to worry about what days the trash picked up, right? I'll get back to all of this, I promise. It will make more sense. But I always felt this itch that, is this all, there is to life? Go to work, come back home, eat, sleep, wake up, go to work, come back home, eat, sleep. I'm like, there's gotta be something else. So I really had that hitch, but I could not just, really fulfill that, right? Or really had the spirit of discernment to really think of like, where can I actually, take my life that will be more fulfilling and really that can help me contribute to my community. So I just had that hitch, and kind of out of the blue, a friend of mine called me. And he's like, hey, Ola, do you want to meet me in Dubai? I've got to meet some investors over there. And, I want you to really help me with my business, which was a real estate business in London. I lived in the UK as well. So obviously I did what every wise man does and, obviously prayed about it. And I asked my wife. and my wife was like, your friend wants you to come all the way to Dubai so you guys can have a meeting. I was like, yeah. She's like, well, have you guys heard of FaceTime, Zoom, Skype? telephone. And I was like, yeah, I get that. But what if I go on this trip and I actually learned something, something really, that I did not know before, right? One of my favorite quotes is, you don't know what you don't know. That's just the definition of life. You don't know what you don't know. So anyway, long story short, I was on the plane to Dubai. I got to Dubai, as it's not what you expect, like, fancy Ferraris flying around. No, it was just me and my friend in a hotel room, masterminding, on this business for about 3 days straight. And, I realized that, oh my goodness, like, he's doing really well in real estate investing in the UK. So, kind of on my plane back, I was just like, oh my God, like, I got to do this in America. I don't know how, but I got to figure out how to do this. So obviously, upon getting back home to the US, I basically just read a ton of books, listening to all the podcasts, just really went pretty much obsessive on real estate investing, right? Because I felt that this might be that itch I've been feeling, right? Until I actually picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And when I picked up that book, I was like, oh my goodness, this guy is essentially saying everything that I could not articulate in my mind. Like, it's like a mind reader. Like, this is me, but it is basically just saying what I've been trying to figure out for the past, 3 to 4 years or whatever. So I think that for me was really like a wake up call, kind of smacked me, like into life. And, 2-3 months later, we bought our first property, which was a duplex in a Class A area in Baltimore. And, that meant we had to leave our cozy luxury apartment where we never had to worry about parking. We never had to worry about property taxes. I didn't even know what those things were. I didn't care what day the trash was being taken out. And then we moved into this building in Baltimore City where we have to worry about parking, because there's never ever parking. We have to drive around the block like 2 or 3 times to get parking. Where I have to know what my property taxes are. Where I have to take out the trash on Thursday, and Tuesday is recycling, right? And if I don't do that, obviously I have a house full of trash. My wife is not going to be happy. The reason I'm bringing that up is I had to get uncomfortable to actually propel into my success, right? If I'd stayed comfortable in that luxury apartment, living life and not taking the chance to move into this place, I wouldn't have known everything I knew. So I just wanted to really tie it up that way for people listening, so they know that success, or whatever that is for everyone, isn't this grandiose, almost ostentatious display of an event. No, it's sometimes very vanilla. You won't even know, right? And I'll add to that story. Yeah, there was just a fateful night, where my wife and I were at home, doing what lovers do, cooking, and I was talking to my wife, and I was like, hey baby, like, now that we bought this new apartment, we're living in this apartment, my account has just been growing. Like, literally I get money in and it actually sits there. It doesn't actually go back out. And she's like, me too. That's when we had that epiphany, like, oh my goodness, what we did, which, like I said, wasn't a grandiose, ostentatious move. It was just bought a new building and we had tenants in paying most of our mortgage. But we started to see that in our bank account, right? And the reason I like to bring up the story is just to motivate people who are out there to really think that, you're basically just a few moves to, your success, right? You might think it's something major and big, but it's usually not.
That's truly inspirational. So you basically went into the active side, but you purchased, how many units was that?
So that was a 2-unit. That was our starter investment property.
So basically the tenants were paying your mortgage and you were saving everything else. So that's basically still the active side, and it's basically house hacking.
Correct.
And I love that. So tell me about your next investment, and was that active or passive?
So this is really interesting because, we were doing this. We were like, oh my goodness, we've got this house. What if we do, I don't know, 10 more of this? Like if we did 10 of this, like we don't have to work, both of us, right? So we started looking at, passive opportunities with, real estate investing. And, the main thing that kept coming back was multifamily investing. So, I basically heard a podcast, a guy called Joe Fellis, reached out to him, started learning the ropes of, how to get into multifamily investing, and with the hope of maybe, even passively investing. And I was doing that pretty well, kind of learning, just kind of learning my way. And then I contracted a disease called the shiny object syndrome. I met, I can see John just laughing. I met a partner who said, hey, Ola, we can start flipping houses. You can make like 50 grand, 20 grand here and there. All this like multifamily stuff you're trying to do, it takes long. I was like, oh my goodness, this sounds amazing. I can make 50 grand in like 2 months, like HGTV. So I kind of abandoned, that path, and I went into partnership, with this person, and then we flipped a few houses, and then I realized it was nothing like HGTV. It was great. We finished the properties, we listed it. In fact, our first property, I'll just kind of give you the numbers here. We bought that property for, 75,000. We put in another 75, and then we sold it for like 245, and it sold within 10 days. Now for me, I was just thinking, well, I had to be at this project every other day. It was kind of like a lot of work, which I don't mind. It was just not the kind of work that I wanted. I just felt like I did not have the temperament to be a flipper, because you have to deal with contractors, you have to deal with city officials. It's just a lot, for that time. So I kind of, pivoted and just kind of went back into multifamily. And it took us a little while, and we just closed with our partners on a 160 unit in Houston, Texas, recently, I think about a couple of months or so ago. So we're kind of like in the first phase of that asset. We're trying to obviously reposition it, cure any kind of maintenance, and start to turn over some of the units.
That's pretty cool. Now, are you still living in your house hack first purchase?
Actually, no, that's gone now. So that's a kind of a passive, event for us. So, that house is in a Class A area, Class A tenant. We just pretty much hands off. Now, nothing is 100% hands off, but for the most part, it's pretty, on its own, and we just kind of get in.
Are you self-managing?
Yes, we are actually. We are on that asset.
So I would still consider that as active.
You can call that active. Yep.
Because you're still taking care of the asset and
correct,
answering the calls. Now I want to ask you about your 160 unit, and I don't want to go in a direction that it's normally gone into. I want to ask you, how did you get that 160 to the point where you were raising capital on it? You said it was $11.5 million property. How much did you have to raise? And how many investors did you bring into that deal?
Oh man, that's a packed question. So that was a 4.5 equity raise. Total investors that we have, probably just over maybe over 30, I would say, in total, or maybe a little bit more. We brought in a few investors to that, that equity stack. We have, essentially 3 GPs on that deal, myself included. So we brought basically, everybody, all our uncles and aunties, and everybody we could bring to that deal to raise that fund. And obviously some other friends and family as well. So that's kind of how we raised that particular deal.
So that was a 506B?
That was a 506B, correct.
For the audience that doesn't know what a 506B is, that's for a sophisticated investor, and it's not, it's open to also accredited investors, but only 35 sophisticated investors can be in that deal. So yeah, I just wanted to provide that feedback, and I appreciate that. That's pretty cool. So what kind of returns were you guys projecting on? Well, actually, I don't want to get into that because I don't, it's actually a real life deal, right? So
correct. Yes.
Are you meeting returns?
Yes, we are. We just had an investor call actually recently where we kind of just briefed our investors what we're doing. So yeah, we're on target on that. And we also speak to obviously our asset managers, our property management company as well constantly. We should be going to that asset again to kind of take a look as well to kind of see where we're at. It's a really interesting asset for us. We like that market. We like Houston. We like Texas. Full stop. I was talking to you before the call. We were looking at another deal there. That we just got on the contract. So we're pretty excited for us. And as you know this, John, this is a team sport. It's sometimes I am a little bit kind of overreaching here, but sometimes I feel like syndicators are like presidents, right? You just need a team of different people. You just cannot do this by yourself. And one other thing I love to say is, even if you were like a Saudi prince with millions and millions of dollars, you still need a team of people, because it's just multifaceted and it's extremely complex actually. So we just kind of leverage on our team strengths, and everybody does their bit.
That is really true. So it's highly unlikely you're coming across someone that's actually the lone person on the GP side. So that's a very great point. Now, quick question. You mentioned something that piqued my interest. The investor call. Usually investor calls are basically kind of bad news, right? So it's usually a capital raise, but you guys actually had one just to brief on the actual property, right? Can you tell us about that call?
Yeah, sure. Actually, this was just for a specific investor that required, that they wanted to kind of, get a touch base. What you tend to notice, as you're, dealing with a lot of investors, you get a lot of different personalities. Different investors want different things, and we try to obviously cater for that. So this one investor wanted to kind of just check in on what was going on, and that's kind of why I had the call, and just to kind of give them a feedback on what we're doing. But of course, we're more than happy to get our investors on the phone if they had questions, or just kind of wanted to know what's going on. And for me as well, like I treat our investor relationships like marriages. Because most of our deals, apart from the one we're looking at right now, which is a 3-year deal, but most of our deals are 5 to 7 years. So really, that's a long time. So we make sure that the relationship is pretty strong. We stay close, to our investors in terms of kind of providing them with updates. So it's just not like crickets. It's like you place that capital, with a syndicator, and it's just like, oh, where's this person? They just like disappeared. Now, on the extreme side of the spectrum, some investors, like I said, different personalities don't want to hear from you. They just want to see that mailbox money, right, every month. So it's really trying to get that balance to, almost in a kind of an unspoken gauge that we have. Some people don't want to be bothered because they're maybe really busy. Maybe they're doctors, or they're just really extremely busy. So they don't want to be bothered. So far, they keep getting their monthly or quarterly disbursements. Frankly, they don't really care. Are
you updating them with quarterly or monthly newsletters just to give them a lowdown of what's going down with the property?
So that's a great point, actually. So as for the newsletter, we typically have, something going out, pretty much every other, kind of bi-weekly. We have that. That's just a general newsletter. And that usually goes out to our base of subscribers for the newsletter, but specifically a performance, update on that particular asset. So if you've invested with, the deal I'm talking about, then we tag you on the system as an investor in that deal. And yes, you would get a quarterly performance update on the deal, what's going on, a few metrics that we share with our investors as well.
That's pretty cool. Thank you for allowing us to dive into that. I have one question regarding to your passive investing career, and what kind of impact has it had on your lifestyle?
It's so fascinating, just kind of like going back to what I said in the beginning of you don't know what you don't know. And another one of my favorite quotes is, stop going with the flow and start paddling towards your goals, right? Life, some people just tell you like, just go with the flow. Just no, you if you keep going with the flow, you might be heading for a waterfall, right? And we don't want that. So I think, going back to your question, when we kind of had the epiphany of like real estate, like what this could really do to us and our family, it was just eye opening, right? For us. And that just makes you like, like you read in the bio, and my wife and I, we travel a lot. We went to the Philippines. My wife is Filipino. So we went to some slums, and we kind of just did, a little bit of initiatives while we were there. And during our time there, we realized that a lot of people there don't really have good dental hygiene, right? right? So we want to go back, next year, 2020, to that particular part of the world and, just give out toothpaste and toothbrushes. I mean, to someone who listens to this episode, they might think, wait, what? Yeah, there are places in the world where water is a big deal. There are places in the world where, dental hygiene is actually a thing, right? So what passive investing has done for us, and just the ability to really unleash that power of real estate, that passive income approach that real estate gives you, is you can get to do things like live your life and travel and, be a better impact on our world, that we live in. So for us, it's just been eye-opening. It's really never about the money. Just, frankly, we're not going to take, any of it when we live this journey. And life is, ephemeral in its nature. It's very short. So we have a really good understanding of that, a dwelling. So we're pretty simplistic people, my wife and I, and part of our team as well. So we just want to give back and add value to our investors, essentially.
I truly love that, and thank you for your contribution to the world, right? So that's pretty cool, man. So
yeah, thank you.
Ola, tell me one piece of advice you would provide the PI listeners.
Oh man, thank you so much for that. For the PI listeners, I think one advice is to, stay open, right? And the reason I built up the story in the beginning is, when I got the call from my friend from Dubai, I could have said, I'm busy. I don't want to go, or whatever excuse we give, right? Because we always expect a turning point or success in our life to be very obvious, very loud, but it could just be a phone call, right? So, be open-minded, pay attention, understand that before you can be successful, you need to be a different person, right? You really, really need to be a different. There has to be a transformational process that needs to occur, right? You need to be able to challenge your conventional thinking, and you need to be willing to distort the lens in which you've been looking at the world, right? Because you can't, maybe you go out there, you see somebody that is successful, well-to-do, and you're like, oh, well, maybe they just got lucky, or maybe they just changed, their philosophy of life. So really being open and understanding that, success, there's always a method to the madness. It's not just kind of like a luck or whatever. There's a method to it. And listening to people like, John, like your show, you can start to learn some things that might, make you feel uncomfortable and change the way you've seen the world up until this point.
I truly appreciate that. Thank you. I know the PI listeners appreciate that too. Ola, how can we reach you?
Best place to reach me is go to investwithola.com. Essentially redirects you to our website. So investwithola, OLA.com. I've been a little bit kind of, pretty busy, to be honest. So I haven't been on Instagram, but that's pretty much my main social media. But I'm pretty much ubiquitous. If, on the web, if you just put my name, I'm everywhere. So Ola Dantis, you can't miss me.
Appreciate you, Ola. Thank you for coming on. I just want to recap something real quick. Be comfortable being uncomfortable if you're going on the active side, if you're going to disrupt what you're going to do, but it's all worth it on the other side if you really, really, fight through that process. And sometimes it is a mental challenge more than a physical challenge, right? So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you for giving us some insight on how you cultivated that 160 and branch out to your investors and giving us that kind of peek behind the window, if you don't mind me saying. So
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No worries. PI listeners, I appreciate you for listening. If any of this resonates with you, please subscribe and leave a review. The more you know, the more we grow. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time.